And have you ever waited for something so long that it started to break your heart? You made dua. You cried at night. You tried your best, but nothing changed. And deep inside a quiet whisper asked, why is Allah delaying me? My brothers and sisters, sometimes what feels like a delay is not a denial, and it's divine preparation. We live in a world that moves fast. We expect instant results, quick relief, immediate answers. But Allah's timing is not like ours. He sees what we cannot see, and He knows what your soul needs, even more than what your heart wants. And that job you didn't get, that person who walked away, that dream that hasn't come true yet, what if that delay is actually saving you? And the Quran reminds us, indeed Allah is with the patient. Surah Baqarah 2153. And being patient doesn't mean doing nothing. It means trusting silently and walking with hope and believing that even the silence is filled with Allah's mercy. Today, let us talk about the power of patience, not just as a virtue, but as a key to peace, a key to unlocking Allah's perfect plan, even when life feels unfair, even when your heart is tired, and because His plan is still working, even when it feels like nothing is moving. Why patience feels so difficult in a fast world, and in a world of instant messages and one-day deliveries. We've been conditioned to believe that anything worth having should come quickly, and we tap a screen and expect results. So when Allah asks us to wait for healing, for answers, for change, our modern hearts struggle, and patience feels unnatural, even frustrating. But the truth is, it's not because you're weak. It's because we've been trained to value speed over stillness, and then reaction over reflection. We scroll through social media and see people achieving what we are still praying for. Marriages, careers, health, happiness. And it all seems to be happening for others. And deep down we wonder why Allah hasn't moved for us yet. But what we forget is that online timelines are not divine timelines. What you see in seconds may have taken others years of struggle. And Allah's plan doesn't follow hashtags. It follows your heart and your growth. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ waited 13 years in Mecca under pressure and persecution and pain before the path to Medina opened. Prophet Waisfam was imprisoned for years before his name was cleared and his position elevated. And these were not delays. They were divine preparations. They weren't being forgotten. And they were being prepared, and their patience became part of their legacy. Today, patience is misunderstood. It's often mistaken as passivity and like waiting on a couch for something to magically appear. But true Islamic patience is active. It's trusting Allah while still making effort. And it's praying while still trying. It's crying at night and then getting up to face the day again. It's a beautiful blend of surrender and striving. And it is one of the most powerful forms of worship. Our generation finds it hard to wait because we equate waiting with failure. And if something doesn't happen quickly, we assume it's not happening at all. But Allah reminds us in the Quran, indeed the patient will be given their reward without account. Surah Zumar 39:10. That means your patience isn't just respected by Allah, and it's rewarded beyond measure even before the outcome arrives. We must unlearn the idea that speed equals success, and some of the most powerful changes happen slowly. A tree doesn't grow overnight. Rain doesn't fall instantly. Healing takes time, and so does divine wisdom. And just because your miracle hasn't appeared yet, doesn't mean it isn't already on the way. It may be growing underground in silence until it's time to bloom. And when life slows down or even feels stuck, it's easy to panic. We feel the need to do something, anything, to escape the discomfort. But sometimes Allah puts you in a season of waiting so your soul can catch up, so your heart can realign, so your priorities can reset. And if you rush this part, you might miss the lesson and arrive at the destination spiritually unprepared. The challenge of patience isn't just in the waiting, and it's in what we tell ourselves while we wait. Shayan whispers, it's not working, you're being ignored, you're wasting time. But Allah says, and so be patient. Indeed, the promise of Allah is truth. Surah 30:60. What's more true, the doubt in your head or the word of your Lord? And it's okay to feel tired. Even the most patient believers felt waves of weakness, but they didn't give up. They cried, they prayed, they endured, and they were elevated. The real beauty of patience is not how strong you are, but how gently you return to Allah every time you feel like breaking. And your tears are not signs of defeat. They are signs of faith still alive. We often say, Be patient, and your time will come. But Islam teaches us that the time itself is a test. How you wait matters. Are you bitter or trusting? And are you distracted or reflective? Are you complaining or remembering? The way you wait shapes the way your dua is received. And patience isn't just about enduring the delay. It's about who you become during it. Think about the blessings you have today and how many of them came after a long wait. How many doors opened only after other doors closed. That is the pattern of divine mercy. And sometimes we don't realize we're living the answer to old prayers because we were so focused on the pain of waiting. And what you call delay back then might be your biggest blessing now. So if you're waiting now for love, for healing, for direction, know this. You are not alone. You are not being punished. You are being held by the most merciful. And one day what feels like a burden will become your strength. And one day what you call delay will become your story of how Allah showed up in His perfect way at His perfect time. Be patient. Trust the plan. And the wait is not in vain. When delay feels like rejection, sometimes the hardest test isn't hardship, it's silence. You pray sincerely and beg Allah with tears, stay up in the last third of the night, and yet nothing changes. Doors remain closed, answers feel delayed, and the quiet voice in your chest begins to whisper. Maybe Allah isn't listening. But dear soul, silence from Allah is not rejection. It's redirection and protection and sometimes even elevation. Rejection feels final, but Allah is not like people. When humans say no, it often means go away. But when Allah delays something, it may mean not now. My servant, I have better for you. We forget that Allah's names include all Hakim, the most wise. And wisdom sometimes looks like unanswered prayers. Not because He didn't hear you, but because He heard what your heart truly needs more than what your tongue is asking for. And have you ever wanted something so badly only to discover later that it would have harmed your peace or distracted your purpose? And at the time it felt cruel that you didn't get it. But now you look back and whisper, Alhamdulillah, it didn't work out. And this is the mercy of delay. A divine no that was really a hidden yes. A yes to something better, deeper, more lasting. Even if it arrives on a different timeline than you plan. We live in a world where speed is everything. And so when we are asked to wait, and especially by the one we turn to for hope, it feels unbearable. But in the Quran, and the most beloved servants of Allah were tested not just with hardship, but with delay. Prophet Ob waited through illness. And Prophet Yaqub cried for years over his son. Prophet Musa wandered in uncertainty. None of them were rejected. They were all chosen. And delay teaches us something that immediate blessings never could. It forces us to ask, do I love Allah for His gifts or for who He is? And if He doesn't give me what I want right now, will I still trust Him? Will I still make dua, still pray, still believe? This is where real faith is forged. And not in the comfort of answers, but in the age of the wait. You see, Shayan wants you to interpret silence as abandonment. But Allah says in Surah Baqarah, and indeed Allah is with the patient, not just watching you from afar with you. Every tear you shed, He records. Every heartbeat of hope He hears. And when nothing seems to be moving in your favor, Allah is moving things in your soul. Polishing, cleansing, preparing. And sometimes the answer to your dua is growing underground like a seed you planted. You water it with prayer. Nourish it with patience. And one day when your heart is ready, it blooms. But until then, Allah protects it in the soil. Because if He gave it to you too soon, it may not survive. And His delay is not a denial, it's divine timing. Think of Prophet Lasef, thrown into a well, sold as a slave, imprisoned unjustly, and all before he became a leader of Egypt. At every point, it looked like rejection. But each delay was a detour toward destiny. And what seemed like abandonment was actually divine arrangement. His story wasn't paused. It was being written with precision. When you feel delayed, and ask yourself, what is Allah growing in me? Is He building my patience, increasing my faith, testing my sincerity? And sometimes the gift isn't what you receive. It's who you become in the waiting. Maybe the delay is developing your spiritual muscles, teaching you sabr, and patience, hair applause, contentment, and trust. Let's not measure divine love by how quickly our prayers are answered. Allah's love is not proven by speed, but by sincerity. Sometimes the waiting room is where your heart heals. And sometimes your dua is answered not with a new thing, but with a new you. stronger, softer, wiser, closer to Allah than you were before. If you are waiting right now on a job, on a spouse, on healing, on clarity, take comfort. Your Lord has not forgotten you. Your voice has not gone unheard. And the angels are writing, and your patience is planting light on your path. The delay is not the end of your story. And it might be the chapter where your soul is most seen by the one who matters most. So don't give up. Don't misread the silence. And don't confuse stillness with absence. Allah's delay is never out of neglect. It's always out of love. When the answer finally comes, and it will, and you will see that every second of waiting had a purpose. Every unanswered prayer was actually answered in the most perfect way. And Quranic stories of waiting with faith. One of the greatest comforts in the Quran is this. Even the most beloved of Allah had to wait. They waited not because Allah forgot them, but because He was preparing them. These weren't ordinary people. They were prophets, yet they faced delays and darkness and deep trials. Their stories teach us that waiting is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of divine attention. Take Prophet Job, and his body was afflicted, his wealth stripped away, his family taken, and yet not once did he complain. For years he bore his pain in silence. And when he finally called upon Allah, it was not in anger but in humility. Indeed, adversity has touched me. And you are the most merciful of the merciful. Surah Talia 21:3. His patience wasn't passive, it was a form of worship. Look at Prophet Yaqub. And Yaqub alayhi, he lost his beloved son Wasif, and for years he mourned in silence. His heart remained attached to Allah. And not because he saw evidence of return, but because he believed in Allah's promise. He said, I only complain of my suffering and my grief to Allah. Surah Yasif 12:6. His tears did not mean doubt. They were a reflection of deep faith. And Prophet Yasef, Joseph alayhi was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a well, sold as a slave, and imprisoned all before his dream finally came true. And imagine being punished for your innocence. Imagine sitting in a prison cell, forgotten by the world, yet still trusting Allah's plan. And his patience wasn't just about enduring. It was about trusting the unseen good in every delay. And Prophet Moses alayhi waited years in exile after fleeing Egypt, and unaware that this very isolation would prepare him for his greatest mission to face Pharaoh. His story reminds us that sometimes the delay is for training, and you're not being left behind. You're being strengthened. When the time is right, Allah sends you back into the world with purpose and power. And the mother of Musa also faced a test of waiting. She was inspired by Allah to place her newborn in a river, an act that defies every mother's instinct. And yet, she obeyed, and the Quran says her heart was nearly breaking. But Allah comforted her, promising His return. And that child, once floating alone, returned not only safe, but as a prophet. Her story is one of quiet surrender and divine fulfillment. And Maryam, Mary, the mother of Isa, Jesus, faced societal judgment, loneliness, and the weight of a miraculous pregnancy. And in her isolation, when labor pains overtook her, she cried out, wishing she had died. But Allah sent her comfort as stream, dates, and reassurance. And her story shows that even in the most overwhelming pain, divine relief is near. Often in the moment you feel most forgotten. And Prophet Noah alayhi preached for 950 years. He watched generations reject him, mock him, and abandon truth. Yet he didn't give up. And his story reminds us that success in Allah's eyes isn't measured by numbers or speed, but by steadfastness. He built the ark before a drop of rain fell. And that is faith preparing for what Allah promised even when the world doubts. Even our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu had to wait. And the first revelation came and then silence. No verses, no messages. That pause known as always was a test of his heart. And imagine receiving the words of God and then nothing. But he waited, and when revelation resumed, it came with the reminder, your Lord has not forsaken you, and nor has He detested you. Surah 8 and 9:33. These stories aren't just history, they are healing. And they remind us that delay is a thread woven into every believer's journey, not as punishment, but as purpose. Allah doesn't rush the souls He loves, and He refines them through time, silence, hardship, and hope. If the prophets could wait years, even decades, surely we can wait a little longer with trust. And remember, in every story, the wait was worth it. Ayub was healed. Yusuf became a leader. Musa led his people. Maryam was honored above all women. And Muhammad Salah became a mercy to the worlds. Their endings were better than their beginnings. not despite the wait, but because of it. And what you call delay now may be the foundation of your legacy later. So when your heart feels tired of waiting, return to the Quran, read their stories, and walk in their footsteps. Know that you are not the first to ask, where is Allah? And you won't be the last to one day say, Alhamdulillah. And He was with me the entire time. Faith isn't proven by how quickly life moves, but by how firmly you hold on when it slows down. And when everything feels unfair, what's really happening? Sometimes life doesn't just feel difficult, it feels unfair. You pray, you work hard, and you treat people kindly, and yet it's the liars, the arrogant, and the unjust who seem to win. And you watch people who cheat rise in wealth, and people who backbite sit in power, and you silently wonder, where Allah? And where is the justice? This feeling isn't new. It's part of the test that many righteous before you have also faced. In the Quran, and even the prophets were met with injustice. Yusufam was thrown into a well by his brothers. He was accused of something he didn't do. And he was forgotten in prison. Was any of that fair? But every part of that journey was essential. Every injustice was a step toward Allah's greater plan. And a plan so perfect that even the pain became part of the elevation. Fairness in this world is not guaranteed. But justice with Allah is He is almost just. And He doesn't miss a single tear, a single sigh, or a single moment where you stayed silent instead of retaliating. And what feels like unfairness today is often a doorway toward elevation tomorrow. But that doorway doesn't open with anger, it opens with trust. And Allah reminds us in Baqarah, perhaps you dislike a thing, and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing, and it is bad for you. And Allah knows and you do not know. We see the surface. He sees the entire picture. We see the moment, He sees the destination. And the unfairness we feel is often rooted in our limited vision, not divine injustice. Some of the most beautiful hearts are born from unfair situations. And a person who grew up without kindness becomes a giver of compassion. Someone who was betrayed learns to value loyalty. And someone whose prayers weren't answered grows in patience. You may not have chosen this chapter, but Allah is using it to author something powerful within you. When you experience betrayal or loss, it's not always because you did something wrong. And it might be because you're being shown something you would have never seen otherwise. Sometimes Allah allows pain not to punish you, but to detach you from people, from illusions, from outcomes you're clinging to more than you realize. The Prophet Muhammad Salama was mocked, insulted, and exiled, and even physically attacked. None of that was fair, yet he remained patient, compassionate, and forgiving. Why? And because he understood that what truly matters isn't how people treat you, it's how Allah sees your response. And he taught us that justice begins in the unseen, not the courtroom of this world. If life feels unfair, it's okay to feel tired, it's okay to cry. Even Maryam alayhi cried under the pain of labor and said, I wish I had died before this, and was in oblivion. Surah Maryam 19:23. But what followed her pain was divine provision, honor, and peace. And sometimes the most unfair moments lead to the most beautiful outcomes if you keep holding on. Unfairness often pushes you into a spiritual corner and a place where you question your worth. But remember, your worth isn't measured by how people treat you or how quickly life rewards you. And it's measured by the resilience you show, the dignity you maintain, and the closeness you build with Allah. When everything seems against you, you might look at others and think they don't even pray, but they're living better than me. But don't be fooled by appearances. And sometimes worldly ease is a test, and hardship is a mercy. Allah gives dunya to whom He wills, even those He does not love. But He gives trials to those He wants to purify, elevate, and draw near. Don't let unfairness harden your heart. Let it refine your character. And let it deepen your doors. Let it increase your patience. This life is not jar. It's not supposed to be perfect. That's why our Prophet ﷺ said, and this world is a prison for the believer and a paradise for the disbeliever. True fairness is reserved for the hereafter, not here. And when you feel invisible, overlooked, or wronged, know that you are seen. The angels record every injustice, and Allah's justice never misses. And the pain you endure silently is not wasted. It becomes light on the day when every secret is exposed and every deed is weighed, and nothing you bear patiently goes unrewarded. Sometimes what feels unfair is actually a sign that you're on a path of growth. if everything came easy and your soul would remain stagnant. But pressure turns coal into diamonds. Fire forges steel, and spiritual weight builds eternal strength. And what feels like a burden now may be the blessing that transforms who you are. The delay in justice, the betrayal from people, the silence in response, and all of it might feel like Allah has turned away. But He hasn't. He is closer than your jugular vein. He is watching, recording, and preparing a response that will make you say, "Now I understand." Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day you'll see the wisdom. So hold on. And don't let the unfairness of life steal the fairness of your soul. Don't trade your peace for bitterness. Don't trade your doer for doubts. Keep believing and keep trusting. Because when everything feels unfair, something beautiful is still being written by the most just, the most loving, and the one who never wrongs his servant. Letting go of the illusion of control. We often walk through life thinking we're in control of our plans and our outcomes, our relationships. We believe if we do everything right, things will go the way we expect. But life doesn't always obey our logic. And the reality is control is an illusion. You may drive the car, but Allah writes the road. And the sooner we accept this, the more peace we find. The Quran reminds us again and again that Allah is the best of planners. Surah An-Nahl 18:30. Not just a good planner, the best. And because while we see the surface, He sees the hidden. While we aim for convenience, He aims for growth. You might try to force something to happen, but if it's not written for you, all your efforts will only exhaust you. Control feeds the ego. It tells us we must be perfect, prepared, and powerful at all times. But the soul thrives in surrender. It blooms in trust. Letting go doesn't mean you're giving up, and it means you're placing your trust in the one who has always had the final say. And when you do that, your heart begins to breathe. And think of Prophet Musa alayhi salam standing in front of the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army closing in. There was no escape, no plan, no logic. Yet, he didn't panic. He said, "Indeed, my Lord is with me." Surah Ashwara 20:60-62. And Allah did. Control would have told him to run. But faith told him to wait, and a miracle split the sea. The more you try to control every outcome, the more anxious you become. And you will start measuring your worth by results, your peace by achievements. But the Prophet Muhammad taught us through his life that our job is effort, not outcomes. And he preached for years, was rejected by his own people, but never stopped. Because he surrendered the results to Allah. And sometimes your plan not working is Allah saving you. That delay, that detour, that dead end, it wasn't a failure. It was a divine redirection. And the job you didn't get, the person who left, the opportunity that collapsed, all of it was part of a bigger mercy. And that's what happens when you let go. And you stop chasing closed doors and start trusting open ones. Control convinces us we must have answers. But Allah teaches us that sometimes we only need patience. You might be in a season of uncertainty right now, trying to figure out what's next. And maybe the next step isn't clear because Allah wants you to trust before you move. Not every path is meant to be lit before you walk. And letting go also means letting go of the past, of what hurt you, of what didn't go your way. And control tries to rewrite the story to change what cannot be changed. But healing begins when you say, Allah has decreed and whatever He wills, He does. And that surrender is not weakness, it's freedom. Have you ever noticed how the things you forced never brought peace? The relationship you begged to work, and the job you clung to, the outcome you obsessed over. It's because you were trying to carry something never meant to be yours. And what is yours will come with ease, with clarity, with Allah's timing. You don't need to force the doors He hasn't opened. And the Prophet Ibrahim didn't know where he was going when Allah told him to leave. But he obeyed. He let go of needing the full picture. And in that surrender, he became the father of nations. His story teaches us you don't need to know everything when you know the one who does. And one of the biggest signs you're growing spiritually is this. You stop needing to control everything and you start making more duh. And you shift from planning every detail to saying, Wallah, if this is good for me, make it easy. If not, and remove it gently. That kind of prayer comes from a heart that knows whatever happens, I am still held. Sometimes letting go looks like silence. And not explaining yourself anymore. Not chasing people who misunderstand you. Not fixing what Allah is unfixing. It's trusting that Allah sees the truth and knows your heart and will defend you better than you could ever defend yourself. We worry so much about how others see us. What if they don't understand? And what if they leave? But Allah never misjudges. He never leaves. The more you try to control people's opinions, and the more distant you feel from your own peace. Let go of how they see you and focus on how He sees you. If you've been feeling anxious, exhausted, or burdened, maybe it's not because you're weak. Maybe it's because you're carrying what was never yours to carry. Let go of the weight of control and return the burden to its rightful place. To Allah we belong, and to Him we return every worry. Letting go isn't about doing less, and it's about doing it with peace. You still take action, you still strive, you still dream, but with the calm of knowing that what's meant for you won't miss you, and what's not meant for you, no matter how hard you try, will never stay. In that truth is the secret to serenity. So breathe, trust, release. Let go of the illusion that you're supposed to control everything because you're Lord, and the one who holds the sun in place and the stars in orbit, He's already holding your life in perfect order. You're not alone. You're not forgotten. And you're already being guided even in your letting go. The reward of Sabr, patience in the sight of Allah. Sabr is not just enduring pain, and it's a sacred act of worship. Allah places immense value on patience, not because it's easy, but because it proves your trust in Him when things are unclear. And every moment you choose patience over panic is a moment Allah is watching, recording, and rewarding in ways beyond this world. And the Quran reminds us, indeed the patient will be given their reward without account. Surah Az-Zumar 30:90-10, no limit, no measurement. And Allah doesn't say double or tenfold, He says without account. Why? Because only He knows the weight of the tears you shed in silence, and the strength it took to keep believing when nothing was changing. Patience isn't passive, it's active surrender. And it's choosing to stay kind in the face of cruelty, to keep praying when you feel unheard, to continue giving when your heart is tired. And every one of those moments is noticed by Allah. And He promises that not a single atom of that effort will be wasted. When life gets heavy, and people may tell you to just be patient as if it's a small thing. But in reality, Sabr is one of the most powerful qualities a believer can carry. It holds families together. It rebuilds broken hearts. It holds the soul upright when everything else is falling apart. And the Prophet Muhammad described patience as a light not just in the afterlife, but in this world. A light that steadies your heart and guides your choices and calms your fears. Sometimes that light is the only thing keeping you from falling apart. And in that restraint, and you are rising in rank. Think of Ubay. He lost everything, health, wealth, family. Yet he didn't turn bitter. He turned closer. He said, indeed, and adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful. Surah Aniyah 283. And in response to that Sabr, Allah restored everything and more. That's the power of enduring with faith. You may think your patience is going unnoticed, but in the unseen realm, and angels are writing, they're recording the moments you stay silent for Allah, the nights you cry in sujud, the strength it takes to not complain to people, but instead whisper only to Him. All of it is weighty with reward. Sabr also protects you. It stops you from reacting out anger and from rushing into bad decisions, from breaking ties. You'll regret when you practice Sabr. You're not just enduring, you're shielding yourself with Tawbah. And that's why Allah says, seek help through patience and prayer. Surah Al-Baqarah 245. Even the smallest act of Sabr is beloved to Allah. And holding your tongue when you want to lash out. Lowering your gaze when no one's watching. Smiling through sadness to keep someone else's heart firm. And these may feel small, but in Allah's eyes, they are monumental. There will be moments when Sabr feels like weakness, like doing nothing. But in truth, and it is a sign of deep faith, it means you trust Allah's timing more than your own pain. It means you believe His wisdom is greater than your understanding. And that trust is what makes Sabr so beloved to Him. Every test that requires Sabr is also a gift that purifies and elevates and prepares you for